Welcome to the Sci-Fi Diner Classic. I'm one of your hosts, Scott Herzog.
And hello, I'm Miles P. McLaughlin.
And tonight we're going to re-release an interview that we did with Tahmoh Penikett. Mm-hmm. And how would people know him?
Well, he played Helo on Battlestar Galactica, and he was also in that show Dollhouse.
Yes, and he's done some other stuff as well, right?
Sure, he was in the web series of Mortal Kombat. He's been having guest roles in different shows. Most recently, I remember seeing him in Arrow.
Yeah, absolutely. He's in Arrow. And did you know he's also in Man of Steel?
I seem to recall that, yeah.
Yeah, so he's in Man of Steel. You'll be seeing him in Man of Steel. And he was in Castle, in Continuum, trying to see what else, in Haven, Mortal Kombat, I said, Human Target he was in, Riverworld, remember that TV series Riverworld he did? And then the rest we kind of said some of the more important ones. But a working actor who we had the pleasure of sitting down with at Farpoint 2 years ago.
Yeah, he was a fantastic interview, very fan-friendly guest. So if you're at a con, he's a guest. Make sure you get him on to say hi to him. Get an autograph picture, whatever. You won't be disappointed. He was a lot of fun at at his panel. I mean, asking questions. I remember somebody asking him, what's it like getting, he said it must be tough getting beat up by all those girls on Battlestar Galactica. And he goes, and Dollhouse goes, actually, it's not that bad. Really, it's kind of fun, really.
Right. So it was a pleasure interviewing him, and obviously also Melly from Dollhouse. Which is one of our first classics that we did. So November, and this is great. So, all right. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and share this interview we had with Tahmoh Penikett.
Hello, sci-fi fans. This is Tahmoh Penikett from Dollhouse and Battlestar Galactica, and you're listening to the Sci-Fi Diner podcast. Hey, Sonia.
Jackson.
Stryker. How are you feeling?
I'm okay. Where am I?
In the ICU. You've been out nearly a week. I was pretty worried about you.
Did we get Kano?
Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we are speaking with Tahmoh Penikett at Farpoint. And if we just jump right in, Battlestar Galactica. I heard your character originally wasn't going to be in the show after the miniseries. However, your character played a pivotal role in a major storyline. I've also heard Ronald D. Moore called Helo the conscience of the show. Can you tell us what transpired that made your character survive the miniseries and make it for the TV show?
I mean, that might be a question for the executive producers and stuff. I mean, obviously as an actor on a television series, especially early on, and with such a large cast, you're not really privy to executive decisions like that. Ultimately, I think your job, even if you're a small supporting character like I was, is just to do the best work you can. When I got this role, this is one of the few roles in my 10 years of being a professional that I instantly connected to. I remember reading the sides, the sides for the audition, and just being like, I know this guy, I can do this. I'm very excited about it. And the audition sides were. They were the scene on the planet where I basically give up my seat to Gaius Baltar, and I say, listen, mankind's about to end here. Give up my seat. I have that great scene with Sharon. And for me, personally, I mean, my character and my role in that show was going to be done after the miniseries. I mean, the planet's going to blow up. It's, nuclear holocaust is happening.
Life is over, yeah.
Life is over. He was there, and I was okay with that. I had the privilege to work with Edward James Olmos. Made this incredible connection to Grace Park, who I hadn't met before this miniseries, and the rest of the cast, and it was such a warm environment, and it was like doing a big feature because we shot it over 3 months. So I would come in. I was originally, I think, slated for like 4 days or something. Michael Reimer kept on writing me into other scenes, and he being the brilliant key director that we had. And that was just amazing. So I keep on going in and doing more stuff, and it bonded us more as a cast, and especially the pilots. So for me, that was done. I moved on to another series, a Canadian series, and I didn't think I'd be coming back for Battlestar Galactica. I got some nice compliments at the end from producers. Edward James almost told me that the producers really like my work and they thought about bringing me back. But you take everything with a grain of salt in this business. Nothing's done till it's done. And but 6 months later, whenever it was, when I got the call from Ronald Moore saying, that he had an idea for a storyline, a separate storyline going on the planet where Helo's still alive and trying to survive. I mean, I was ecstatic. I was over the moon.
Well, as a viewer, that scene did say that where your character gives your seat to Baltar.
Yeah,
and I saw him
official.
On the show. I was like, he's back.
Yeah, I mean, it was so well written. It was a great scene, hero scene. I mean, you get a sense of who Helo is from that moment there, and I think the writers stayed true to him somewhat throughout the course of the show. You could always go back and this guy was very, very strong in his convictions, and he knew what he wanted and what he stood for.
Good deal.
Yeah, I love how BSG really didn't tell you what to think. They kind of presented the issues, and then let you as the audience member make the decision. And he presented all sides.
Absolutely, great point. I mean, that's the main point that anybody makes about this brilliant show. It always just asks you to examine both sides. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I mean, it was fascinating. It's brilliant the way Ron Moore did that, and it was brave at the time. I mean, politically and socially in the world, you look at the atmosphere we were living in when BSG started and started touching on issues like insurgency, suicide bombers, very, very touchy issues at the time where all the censorship was happening and everything. And they always just, they forced you to look at both sides of the issues. And I'm so blessed to have worked on a project like this, Really, really. I think even the executive producers and the writers, it seems like Eddie always knew. He's like, this show has so much potential. And from the beginning, he was like, this is amazing, and we're going to go far with this. You don't understand how important this is. And I think even the writers, like Ron Moore and David Icke, were even, I mean, they had a blueprint of where they were going to go, but you never know where the show was going to go, regardless of how much you plan things out, because it's such a collaborative process between writers, actors, the entire crew. Every single person on that show made that show what it became, because like you write a scene a certain way, but the way the actors interpret it sometimes take you in a completely different direction. And the writers always came to us and said that, especially if you do your extra work. To be honest with you, I think that's part of the reason that I stayed on the show. Whenever I had an opportunity with Grace Park, because there's such a big cast, oftentimes our scenes were quite small. Mm-hmm. So we just do backstory. We'd be like, let's find more to this story. What is actually going on in this scene? And we do it, and the writers would have to write for it. They'd be like, we wrote it at this level, and you gave us 3 more. Like, what's going on there? I have to write for that now.
Wow, so even you brought the writers to their A game.
Exactly. And forced them to write for me more in some ways. And that was a huge learning lesson as an actor. And that's just something, I constantly tell, young actors starting out, like, do your work. Yeah. Do your work. When you don't, they're not going to write for you. When you do it, they're going to write for you. There's more opportunity.
As a viewer, you could tell the actors were invested in the show.
Exactly. And I think everyone, as the seasons went on and everyone realized, how special the show and how important it was, everyone got more and more invested. Like, even our crew. And so much of it, not only was incredible talent at all levels, but I can never thank our leads enough. Edward James Olmos and Mary McDonald were just such incredible mentors. Being in the business so long, having gone through everything, having such long careers themselves, both being Academy Award nominees, like just incredible actors, but they were so passionate about the show, and they set such a realistic and proper precedent. They were such giving leads, and yet they worked their asses off, and they're always there, and they kept it light. They got serious when they had to be, but you had to follow suit, man. They were amazing, man.
So they set the tone in a way?
Oh, 100%.
Well, tell us a little bit about Dollhouse. You play a character, Paul Ballard, that's like the conscience of the show in a sense, in some ways.
Yeah.
And you also, rumor has it, you do a lot of your own stunts. What does you call it? Is it Muay Thai?
Muay Thai.
How does that play into your roles in acting in Battlestar and Dollhouse?
Well, whenever I've had the opportunity, I've been a passionate fan of martial arts, and you know, I study them, and I have for many, many years. Unfortunately, because of episodic, you don't get to train as diligently as I would like, and it's been a long time since I've been able to really, really focus on it and train at it. But whenever I've had the opportunity to bring it to any of the shows I've worked on, I've taken that opportunity. For instance, in the boxing scene in Battlestar Galactica, you know, there was an opportunity there. And to be honest with you, I was written in a small scene, and I think I was like holding hand pads for someone, and I wasn't actually in the ring. I kicked and screamed and whined so much about that because they all knew that I trained regularly, and I went straight to I went straight to David Icke and Ron Moore, and I was like, you guys have to put me in here. If I get beat up, fine, but put me in a scene. I want to be boxing in the ring. This is my thing. Don't you dare not do it. Like, I made such a big deal. So they mentioned wrote this, so I could see him with Jamie. And, you know, it's good. I think originally the scene ended with Jamie kicking my ass, and I was like, really? Come on. And they're like, okay, well, change it around. And anyway, it was great. Jamie, you know, Jamie's so athletic. The guy, you should have seen how quickly he learned. Like, he hadn't really done any boxing before. He'd done a quick scene with Eddie in the first season, which was great. Mm-hmm. But that's all he'd really done. But he's a really athletic guy, so he picked up right away. They brought in, at first, one of my best friends and I, Alex Ponovic, and I were working a fight scene out with him. And then they brought on this fight coordinator who got really specific about combinations and how we were going to do the fight scene. And Jamie was great in that, man. That was a lot of fun. Dollhouse, same thing. Pilot episode. Joss Whedon has this great idea. Or not pilot episode. First episode of first season. He wrote in the scene where I was going to box. And I just went to Joss right away, and I'm like, look, I've been doing this martial art, Muay Thai, for a number of years. And I'm like, you know, it's great. Jumping knees, elbows is a beautiful martial art. And he's like, Muay Thai? He's like, can I get some pad Thai with that? I'm like, he's like, he had no idea what I was talking about, right? And I'm like, Joss, trust me, just please, like, this is straight Muay Thai. I'll do the rest. Let me work with the fight coordinators. And we did this scene, and I went in there, and they had this great fight coordinator, but he was more karate-based, which is an amazing martial art in itself, but very different in the way that it didn't have the same knees and elbows and things like that. So we quickly worked, a fight scene, and, got that great fight scene in the first episode of Dollhouse where I'm doing jumping knees, and, I helped choreograph that and put in all the moves that I wanted to, and they had me, 250-pound Maori or Samoan, I should say, my friend Tenaway Reed, who's an amazing stuntman. He's worked with the best. He doubles the Rock often.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so he was the guy who gets beat up in the scene. Guy's a monster. Yeah. But, it was great.
Awesome.
So, whenever I can do my stunts, I do them. If it's something stupid where there's obviously a big chance of me hurting myself, I'll take a step back. But oftentimes, I don't let the stunt guys do my stuff now.
And I'm curious to find out, what was it that attracted you to Battlestar Galactica?
What attracted me to it?
Yes.
I think this is, as soon as I read the sides, you have to understand, even when I booked the gig, I hadn't read the script. Mm-hmm. I only read the sides for it. I remember watching it when I was a kid. I was very, very, very young. I can barely remember the original series. But when I read the sides for the scenes I was going to audition for, and there was the main scene between Sharon and I down on the planet where I gave up my seat to Guy's Baltar. And I just connected to it right away. And that, I think a lot of actors will tell you that rarely happens, where you feel an instant connection. You just say, I know this guy, I know this scene, and you can't wait to get in the room and do the audition. And that was the situation with me. I read it, and I was really, really excited about it. So I even remember, being in the audition room and watching Michael Reimer go by. I didn't know who he was, but I just assumed when I saw him walk by in the casting room that he was the director. And we had a moment. I remember he walked by and he kind of looked at me, and I looked at him, and we just had this second where we just kind of connected. And I was like, all right, this is all falling into place. And as soon as I got in the room, I had a great audition. I think I could say that. And, he worked with me a little bit, and it was great. And it's funny, though, I didn't find out right away. I kind of forgot about it. I was like, well, I guess I didn't get it, because I found out 8 days after that I booked it. I think probably because they were, they're casting all over the place. There's a number of actors in LA and from all over going out for that role. So,
you've been in 2 science fiction shows in both Battlestar Galactica and Dollhouse. Is there something about science fiction as a genre that appeals to you?
I'm a huge sci-fi fan. Always have been ever since I was a kid. I'm particular in what I like. I think a lot of people are. I don't like everything. Some stuff is a little too fantastical for me. It's well known that, like, Blade Runner is my favorite film. I've watched it. I don't even know how many times, probably about 30 times. I love that film. I have to watch it a couple times a year, at least. I like to tell this story too. I find it really incredible that Edward James almost made such an impression on me when I was a little kid, and I saw, thank you, and I saw Blade Runner, and I was fascinated by him more than a lot of actors in that film, and he had such a small role. Do you know what I mean? But he stood out. He was one of the most compelling characters in there. And at that time, even as a little kid, I was thinking, I want to do that. Like, I want to know more about this guy. He's such a good actor. And how does he do that? And then, how many years later, 22 years later or something, they ended up booking a series with him as the lead. I mean, from that point on, though, from, seeing him in that first film, I was always a fan of his work. And they ended up working with him. It was incredible. But I've always loved sci-fi. I read a lot of sci-fi. I've seen certain writers who I've read, ever since I was younger. My dad is a passionate reader too, and he likes a lot of science fiction too. So he's turned me on to a lot of writers. I remember when he turned me on to William Gibson when I was 14, and I've been a passionate fan of his ever since. Although I haven't read his latest work.
When you were started on BSG, it was you and Grace Park most of the time. Was it a big transition when you had to act with the rest of the cast? Did that present different challenges?
For sure, yeah. Just being a young actor, I was just you have to understand. Even in the cast read through, like I said, I hadn't read the script yet. So cast read through, I see some other local Vancouver actors that I know, and they're like, "Oh, hey, what's on? You're on this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm on this," and it's great. And then I see Edward James Olmos and Mary McDonald walk by, and I'm like, holy shit, did you just see it? I had no idea they were on our show. I just thought they were at the studio doing something else, and everyone was like, yeah, they're the leads. And I'm like, oh my God. I started sweating and got really nervous right away, and the cast read-through, I was looking down at the table and mumbling. I was so intimidated. It was both of them. I'm a huge fan of both those actors. So, when I first got to work with him, you got a lot of nerves. Like, Eddie's an intimidating guy when you first meet him. Ultimately, you get to know him. He's just an incredible man. He deserves... I have so much respect for that man, but he's really kind and warm once you get to know him. In the beginning, I was very intimidated to work with Mary and Eddie, and I think most of us were, just because of their stature and their place in the business, their years of experience, the caliber of actor that they were. But it was never not a learning experience. I learned so much every time I ever worked with them.
The first time I saw you that I really remembered you was that initial scene in Battlestar Galactica where you give up your seat to Gaius Baltar. Mm-hmm. And I remember listening to Ron Moore talk about that on his podcast, where he said that he was done with you at that point, and then when they did the premiere, everybody that came out was saying, well, what happens to Helo?
Yeah, there's a big fan response. I guess.
Just immediately from the first showing.
Yeah.
Do you think you're like the luckiest actor?
Definitely. Like, it's really flattering to know that the audience out there responded in that way. They wanted, But I can only take so much of the credit. I mean, it was written really quite well. It was a great scene. It was an awesome opportunity. I think, I think part of it was the connection I had with Grace Park instantly. We connected right away, just as friends, just as young actors. We made a connection and we bonded right away. And I think that showed in the performance and the connection that we had as characters in the show. It's really important. Oftentimes, you just don't have that chemistry. From what I've observed, being a fan of this art form also, is like, it's regardless of how good actors are, sometimes they just don't have chemistry. You see it often. You see oftentimes, and then you'll see actors really trying to make that chemistry. They're playing lovers or people who are very close, and it just doesn't come across well. Grace and I had a connection right away, and we clicked. We were like brother and sister. We were like old friends instantly, and it's awesome. I mean, she's still a dear friend of mine. And, I think that's part of the reason that fans responded to Helo, too. And, but yeah, greatest opportunity in the world. And like I said, I was just answering this question earlier on, I had no idea that I was going to be coming back. I was done with it, and I was okay with that. I had a great experience shooting it. We shot it over months. I worked with incredible actors, and I had to play the hero role in some ways, and I was done with it. I moved on. I got the call like 6-7 months later, maybe even longer. Maybe it was 8 months. I don't know. But that they were going to go to first season. They had an opportunity for storyline on the planet, the C storyline, sort of, to visit Helo running around on the planet trying to survive.
And this was your own storyline. Mm-hmm. That must have been pretty cool.
That was incredible. I remember when Ron called, I had a particularly bad week. My first pilot season in LA, a bunch of bad auditions in a row, and I found out that the last series I was on, the one that I went to right after I shot the miniseries of Battlestar, Cold Squad, a Canadian cop television series, was canceled. So I was having like a really bad day. I think kind of questioned whether I wanted to do this anymore, which you do sometimes, especially after you've had some bad auditions. And then I got the call from Ron Moore. I got the call from my manager and said, Ron Moore wants to talk to you. And I'm like, well, give him my number. And he called me up and he said, yeah, got this idea for the storyline. And I'm like, Ron, where do I sign? Let's do this. I'm excited.
Have you previously been a fan of Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah,
I don't know if
I was very, very young. I remember it though. I didn't have cable when I was a kid, so I remember watching it at friends' houses. But it was significant at the time. I remember how big it was at the time. It was like it was a big deal. I remember having the action figures and stuff, and playing Battlestar Galactica, and no disrespect to the original series, but I think I'd like to think what people think about the show now. I mean, it was one season. We were significant. We shot that show for almost 6 years. If you think about it, 4.5 seasons, but with the miniseries and the year in between, and the writer's strike and everything, we were together 6 years doing that show. I'd like to think that when people think about Battlestar Galactica, they think about our version.
Now, there was a lot of new media that surrounded the show. Ron did the Director's Cut podcast that was meant to be played while you were watching the episode. You guys did a bunch of webisodes during the writer's strike, and I understand that there was some argument surrounding that about the studio didn't want to pay you for the work on the webisodes.
I'm not really privy to a lot of that because I never did any of the webisodes, but I know that some of my cast members did, and I can't remember the situation with that, so I can't really speak on it.
Okay, but do you participate in any new media like Twitter or Facebook or anything like that?
To be honest with you, I really should career-wise. I'm sure that it would be a smart move to get on Twitter. I find it hard to juggle everything. I constantly get really frustrated with Facebook. Even I hate that I check it as much as I do. And to be honest with you, I haven't used it much in the last month, but I still check it because I have a lot of friends who email me there. I'm not good at promoting myself a lot. I try to be present as much as I can in life, and really focus on the things that I can. I find that there's very little time in every day. I need to work out. I need to meditate. I need to be present with my friends and family and not be incessantly checking my phone or Twittering when I'm with them. Because it makes them feel less important and less loved. Because that's how I feel when somebody's doing that when I'm around. Those are things I'm trying to focus on more in life. But I'm constantly being told I need to Twitter. I don't know. I might get in trouble with some of the stuff I might say. I can be really honest at times. And I might put my foot in my mouth. But I'll consider the whole Twitter thing. But other than that, I'm not very good at self-promotion. I just find it hard to juggle email and text and all of that in life. There's too much of it, to be honest with you, in my opinion.
One of my friends calls the current generation the generation that never looks up.
That's what I mean. It's unfortunate. I get it. I'm guilty of it myself when I'm on the computer. I'll be texting. Sometimes I've found myself, comfortably watching. I'm a big, huge fight fan. Fights on in the background. I'm on my computer. I've got my phone beside me, and texts are coming in, or I'm having a WhatsApp conversation at the same time. It's we're like this ADD generation, completely unfocused sometimes. But I really think it's important, and I try and make a point of not doing that when I'm with loved ones or people I care about, because it doesn't do anything for relationships. It's making us more distant, and I mean, the irony of it is we're using technology to get closer to each other, and it's actually making us more distant and more lonely. If you really think about it.
I think it's a double-edged sword. That
it is.
It cuts both ways, and sometimes both ways at the same time.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people here that I only see a couple of times a year, and we keep in touch all year round. And there's this continuing conversation.
Yeah.
And you see someone, and you just throw your arm around them, and go head off to the bar, and it's like you never left.
Yeah, not to be negative about it. Like you said, it is a double-edged sword. It's great to keep in contact with old friends, people I grew up with, family and stuff. I can use Facebook for that and stuff. But it's just it's really just hard finding a fine line though with it.
Yeah, it's managing that line. I think that's the important thing.
The balance of it is really difficult, I find.
It seemed like Battlestar Galactica was really an ensemble show.
Absolutely,
and
huge cast.
Yeah, and yet you got to do great things, but you were part of a bigger group.
Absolutely.
Because when you got to Dollhouse, it wasn't quite as big a group, so you got to do more. You appeared more on this show.
I did somewhat. I mean, you think about it. The thing about Dollhouse, we had 2 seasons. And by the 3rd season, maybe I didn't appear as regularly in Battlestar, but I was. My character, my role, Sharon and I's role, Athena and I's characters in our storyline was quite an integral and important part of the storyline. And if I wasn't shown as much, I was shown in a more significant way more often. We have a whole episode or what have you. I think in a larger picture, I was featured as much in the last couple of years. But Dollhouse, it was like... the only problem with Dollhouse, not to say anything negative about it, is that it was struggling from the minute we started, which is really unfortunate because I think that show had a lot of potential. Joss Whedon's a brilliant man, very, very talented, but it started off on the wrong foot. It was I think there was too many people with too many different ideas trying to make this one thing happen.
Did you have the same experience when you got to Dollhouse? Here was Joss Whedon, a name in science fiction. Did you have, and the other characters, did you have some of the same feelings when you came across the cast as you did in Battlestar?
Well, there was a lot of young actors on the show who maybe didn't have as much experience as I did, but I realized right away how talented they were. Some really, really talented actors. Enver Jokai is a really talented actor. I think he's going to have an incredible career. Deeching herself, beautiful, beautiful young woman. She's just an angel. She's going to have a great career too. Miracle. I mean, they're all. And then you look at some of our leads, just really incredible actors. Harry Lennox, Olivia. I'd worked for a number of years, and I was coming off of an incredible series, so I was quite confident in my ability to do my thing with my character, and just eager. I was just excited. It wasn't the nerves that I had with Battlestar because I was quite a young actor when we did that show so early in my career. But I will say this: it's somewhat hard to work in the environment. I don't have the experience yet, and I think hopefully, maybe you get this after years of experience, but to work in an environment where a show was so hyped, which Dollhouse was, because it's the first thing that Joss had done in a number of years, and to have so much negative press surrounding it. I mean, I kind of hate that about the business somewhat. It's almost like a hater culture. It's like people want you to fall. It's like there was so much hype about it, a lot of excitement, but at the same time, there was almost more negative press that this is going to happen. And from the minute we started, there was the rumors that we're going to be canceled. There's problems on the show, which unfortunately there was in terms of writing. I think, like I said, I think Joss had a vision, and he wasn't able to follow through with that vision. And unfortunately, because of that, the show got steered in different directions, and it didn't reach its full potential. But it did a lot of great things, and there were some incredible episodes. And I'm so happy to have been part of it.
I understand you're doing voice work in Mortal Kombat.
Voice? No.
No, you're in the live action? No.
Mm-hmm. So it's a web movie.
Right.
Has anybody seen the trailer here? Did you guys check out that 7-minute trailer? It's incredible. It's awesome. It's so good. Kevin Tantron is Marissa Tantron. Okay, Marissa Tantron. Do you familiar with her? She was one of the key writers on Dollhouse. Mm-hmm. She's married to Jedward, who's Joss's younger brother. They're good friends of mine. They're awesome. Very talented musicians, writers, the whole deal. So Kevin is Marissa's little brother. He is, I don't know, Kevin's like a young man. He directed Fame. He had this idea. He did the trailer for, very limited budget, this reimagined Mortal Kombat trailer. And because of it, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I think it had 20 million hits. So he's decided to do a web movie. Same thing, limited budget again, but incredible. Shooting like a madman in Vancouver right now. I got cast as one of the characters, Stryker, and I was just in Vancouver last week doing that. I came back on Monday, actually. Came back to LA on Monday.
Again, with the science fiction thing, I always find it interesting. You're sort of drawn to these science fiction parts.
Yeah, I am. I mean, like I said, I'm a fan, but it comes to me. I don't go and get the gigs,
Now, you're a big science fiction fan.
Yep.
Do you read science fiction as well?
Yep.
What's some of your favorite science fiction books?
Probably Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep was one of my favorites at a young age, of course, because of the film I saw first, and then once I got it took me, years later. I was a little boy when I saw, Blade Runner. Yeah. But when I finally got to read the book, I was really excited about that. It's a very different style. William Gibson is definitely my favorite sci-fi writer, though. I love his stuff. One of his last books, Spook Country, is a large part of it's set in Vancouver, where he's lived for years. He gets a lot of his inspiration. He writes from there. I see him all the time. I turn into a fangirl. The 2 times I've met him, I've stumbled over my words and had absolutely nothing to say. And I've read his books, and I could sit there and just quote things, and it's amazing watching a writer develop as a writer, his style, the way he writes, and just to see him grow as an artist. But anytime I've ever seen him, I'd be like, Mr. Gibson, I'm a big fan of your books. It's really nice to meet you. And then walked away going, oh, you idiot. Idiot. Yeah. Anyway, I love William Gibson. Yeah.
Now, we were having this discussion last night about Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yep.
And the book is so hugely different from the movie that was based on it, Blade Runner. Mm-hmm. And I think you really get to see there the difference in the art of writing and the art of filmmaking, and both being, part of storytelling. Mm-hmm. If there was one specific, book that was made into a movie that you would like to be in, what would it be?
Hey, if I had the opportunity to be in any of Harrison Ford's roles when if there was a possibility that there was a remake or something, I would jump at the chance. I don't think Blade Runner should ever be remade, but I mean, incredible film. Yeah. Even though it was so different from the book, I'm still such a huge fan of it.
Yeah, I think both the book and the movie were excellent, but they were completely different.
Yeah. Although I think the final cut really was the best.
Yeah.
Because that's what he wanted to do with it originally. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.